liaison for the Network 23 Contracting Office. We support the Veterans Integrated Service Network 23, which is basically the upper Midwest. A little bit about me. I came into the federal workforce as a second lieutenant in the Air Force years and years ago. I did contracting pretty much at every level for about 12 years. So I bought everything from bullets to bombs to bombers to engines. Spent some time over in the desert, did some weapon systems contracting, services, supplies, pretty much everything in between. So I've seen it all. I've kind of done it all. Coming over to the VA was my first exposure to more the medical side. I've been in this role for a little over 3 years now. My last job as the chief of contracts, I got a little bit of a taste for small business and did that part-time, and then decided I wanted to do that more on a full-time basis, and an opportunity opened up, and I was selected for it. So I'm actually presenting out of Minnesota. Our offices are in St. Paul, but we support medical centers throughout the Midwest, and I'll get to that later. But that's just a little bit about me. So I'm going to jump right into this. And if you can't see my slides, or if you need them bigger, just let me know. But hopefully this will work well. So this is just a little overview, some of the topics I'm going to be covering. Just what is the Small Business Program for those who may be new. Public Law 109, also known as the Veterans Benefits Healthcare and Information Act of 2006. The different socioeconomic set-asides, specifically veteran-owned set-asides. That's typically what we deal with because we are the VA. We're veterans first. My role as a small business advocate, and then I'm going to kind of go into what we purchase on an annual basis by NAICS code, and how we go about purchasing those things. And then I'll kind of give you a breakdown of where we're located, steps to doing business with us, and then some useful resources that will help you down the road. So as a good Air Force officer, we got to start out with the mission. And that is to fulfill President Lincoln's promise, which is to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, by serving and honoring the men and women who are America's veterans. And we do that, like I said, through our Veterans First contracting program. That's a little bit different than other federal agencies because we actually have a separate process that veterans must go through, which I'll get into later. You can't just self-certify. You actually have to go through a rigorous verification process. I'm not going to go through that. So the Small Business Program is designed to help overcome the barriers that impact agencies' ability to meet small business program goals, and assist acquisition professionals in clearly understanding the policies concerning small business utilization, and we provide necessary training to our internal stakeholders and contracting professionals through facilitating small business involvement in the acquisition process. I think some old slides got snuck in here, so I might be skipping around a little bit, but hopefully it won't throw you off. So why does the Small Business Program exist? It exists because it fuels our economy. The VA is a potential customer for procurement-ready small businesses of any size, not just veteran-owned. Procurement readiness refers to the demonstrated ability of a small business to effectively participate in the federal government contracting marketplace and to successfully perform on the contract work as is laid out in the contract terms and conditions. So these are the different social and economic or socioeconomic programs. You have the SDVOSB, the VOSB, the 8A, the hub zone, woman-owned, and then your just run-of-the-mill small business that doesn't fit into any of those other categories above that. And this is kind of the hierarchy that we use when procuring our requirements. So SDVOSBs and VOSBs, again, SDVOSBs fall within the VOSB realm and can compete under a VOSB set aside, but the reverse is not true. A VOSB cannot compete under an SDVOSB set aside. So just, I'll get into that more later. And the purpose is to provide federal contracting assistance to veterans on the basis of competition restricted or set aside for these categories. And again, in order to compete under the Veterans First Contracting Program, I can't emphasize this enough, but you have to go through a verification process with the Center for Verification and Evaluation, which is an arm of the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, or OSDBU, which is kind of our parent organization for small business within the VA. I'm not really going to go into this. Yeah, I'm not going to go into these categories just because for the purposes of this presentation, they're not really applicable. We do consider them, but they're not a priority for our program. You've probably heard of Public Law 109, maybe not. This is also known as the Vets First Contracting Program, or just Vets First. It's not Vets Only, as some people are led to believe. It just means that we target veterans first, and if we can't find veterans that can do the work, then we open it up to those other categories that I mentioned earlier. So this was created specifically for veteran-owned small businesses and expanded to include service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses for VA procurements. And again, it ensures legitimately owned and controlled veterans can compete for VA contracts. It sets priorities within the VA by placing SDVOSBs first and VOSBs second in hierarchy. Again, the certification process only applies to the VA, not other agencies. And I didn't put this in the slides, but under the 2021 National Defense Authorization Act, it's actually the certification process is going to be going under the SBA instead of being specific to the VA. So they're going to be taking that over in the next 3 years. So there will still be a certification process for veterans who wish to do business with the VA, but it will now be run by the Small Business Administration and not the VA office or the VA CVE office. And again, this allows other federal agencies to self-certify. So as I mentioned, the CVE, or the Center for Verification and Evaluation, it helps veterans through the verification process. It helps veterans form or expand their small businesses, and it helps contracting offices identify veteran-owned small businesses through the vendor information portal. That is our first stop when doing market research. That is where we are mandated to look by NAICS code, which is the North American Industry Classification System, which breaks everything down into a 6-digit code for what it is that we're buying. So that is where we look, and that is what I encourage everybody to keep updated and to keep accurate and complete so that we can find you when we're looking for certain products or services. So the socioeconomic set-asides, why do they exist? It's because it's the policy of the government to provide maximum practicable opportunities in our acquisitions to small businesses. And these, again, restrict contracts exclusively for the set-aside that is laid out in the solicitation. And the rule of two states that purchases shall be set aside for small businesses unless the contracting officer determines there's not a reasonable expectation of obtaining offers from two or more small business concerns. Again, that's a contracting officer determination. So if based upon their market research, they don't have a good understanding or a good response from the small business community, then they can dissolve a lower set aside and go to a higher set aside. An example would be they post a sources sought, also known as a request for information, out on the federal, or the used to be FBO, Federal Business Opportunities. Now it's Beta SAM, Contract Opportunities. So they'll post a sources sought, an RFI out there, and ask, for anybody to respond if they can meet that requirement. If they don't get enough responses, or they don't get responses that are responsible, meaning that they have, the right capabilities to do that work, then they can move to the next tier. So I often get asked, well, what are the thresholds? And so these are the current thresholds. These have changed in the last couple of years, mainly for supplies. So anything between $2,000 for construction, $2,500 for services, or $10,000 for supplies, and that $250,000 threshold, which is the simplified acquisition threshold, those are automatically reserved for small business set aside, again, unless the CO has a reason to dissolve that. And those, again, are here for you. The requirements are, the two or more. There has to be competition, or for a federal supply schedule like GSA, the rule is for three or more. And again, you're going to see this a lot, but the VA gives priority to the service disabled and veteran-owned small businesses under Public Law 109. And that was reinforced in the Supreme Court case known as Kingdomware, which you may or may not be familiar with, but if not, basically a veteran-owned small business protested an award that went to a non-veteran-owned small business, and it was sustained. And that all that really did was reinforce what we were already required to do in the VA, which was vets first. So per the FAR, the contracting officer has to be able to certify that there are two or more offers and that they are offering a fair and reasonable price. Now that is subjective depending upon the CO, but if they can go to a small business or a large business and get the same level of service or the same product for, some I've heard say 5% or 10% less than what the small business is offering, then that's not considered fair and reasonable. Again, this is subjective, but that's typically the number that I've heard. Again, I'm not the contracting officer, and each contracting officer looks at things a little bit differently, but usually it's kind of that 5 to 10% window. It's not, as a taxpayer, which we all are, I don't think you'd want us spending money unnecessarily on things that we can get a better price somewhere else, even if it's supporting a small business. So that's kind of how we look at it. And I threw this last bullet in here recently, just because we had an instance recently where a small business responded to a sources sought saying that they were a distributor or a supplier for a large business manufacturer and that they could offer that product. So we opened it up for competition on an unrestricted basis because we had a large business and a small business. The small business did not submit an offer under that solicitation, and the reason they gave was that it wasn't a set aside. Now, an unrestricted, if you see unrestricted or full and open, that means anybody can compete, small and large. So unrestricted does not mean large business only. That means it's open to anyone. So if you ever see that, small business set-asides are restricting competition to only small businesses, but unrestricted, again, it's opening it up to all businesses, large or small. So just keep that in mind. Now, these are just some of the standards that the COs are looking for when determining whether or not a contractor is responsible. Do they have adequate financial resources? Have they complied with proposed delivery and performance schedules in the past? CPARs, that's what we use for our past performance that we look at if we're doing a source selection. Do they have a satisfactory record of integrity and business ethics? I'm not going to go through each of these. This is just kind of for your awareness, and these are some of the things that are taken into consideration when determining making that Rule of Two decision. If we have adequate competition that is from a responsive and responsible contractor. We also have, subcontracting. We do provide maximum opportunity for small business concerns to engage in subcontracting. There are limitations on subcontracting. I'm not going to get into that here, but FAR 19701 defines subcontracting as any agreement entered into by a government prime contractor or subcontractor for supplies or services required for performance of the contract modification, or subcontract. There is a website out there. Daniel can probably help you with that. The SBA maintains a website for subcontracting opportunities. I believe it's called Subnet, but that lists a lot of opportunities. Another good business practice would be to go out and look at awards that have been made on FPDS to see who the prime contractor was that was given an award. That's public information. You can contact them. This applies a lot to construction. We have a lot of subcontracting, a lot of general contractors that are looking for subs to do specific work. So that's a big thing in the VA. They have a lot of subcontracting opportunities under construction. I'm not going to go into the specifics of subcontracting plans, when they're needed, when they're not. Again, as I mentioned before, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, or OSDBU, they're our parent organization in the VA. They kind of give us our marching orders on how to advocate for small businesses. They focus on bridging that gap between procurement-ready businesses and opportunities that are out there, provide guidance, information, and resources to help small businesses through outreach events, through industry days. Before COVID, they would do industry days at the medical centers where they would bring in vendors to present their product or service to the actual buyers, the procurement decision makers. They're still doing that, but it's more virtual for the time being until restrictions are lifted. They establish and monitor small business goals. We have a goal to set aside and award 50% of our annual spend to small businesses. And I think last year we were just under that. We were 49.6, I believe. But right now we're at about 60%. So we're making up for that with a lot of our COVID spending. They also function as an ombudsman for veterans and again, participate in outreach events. This is me. I'm a small business liaison. I do a lot of the same things, just at a more local level. So I advocate for small businesses. I'm responsible for staying current on policies and regulations involving small business and federal acquisitions, such as the non-manufacturer rule, limitations on subcontracting, um, keeping track of changes in the National Defense Authorization Act, and then communicating that information not only to our internal stakeholders, but also to small businesses in partnership with the Small Business Administration, Veteran Business Outreach Centers, PTACs. We're all kind of partner together to get the word out and help you do business with us. It takes a village, I guess you could say, and so we all work together to make that happen. And then also, like I said, we assist contracting staff on small business matters. We get involved in integrated product teams and help early in the acquisition planning phase to identify businesses that may be able to meet the requirement, which directs our procurement method and how we decide what level of set aside we're going to do. And again, we participate in outreach events. We have another one coming up next month, the third week of April. It's SADBOC. You can just Google it, SADBOC, Small and Disadvantaged Business Opportunities Council. So we have a week-long training on how to do business with the government and basically anything else you might want to know about federal contracting. This is a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, I guess you could say. This is how we, in the contracting world, do market research. We look out on SAM, the System for Award Management. That's where any federal contractor has to have registered in order to be given an award. So we search by, again, those NAICS codes, PSC codes, socioeconomic status, location, search by business name, DUNS number, cage code. Just make sure those are all current and accurate, because that also feeds into the SBA's dynamic small business search engine. We use that as well to cast a wider net if we don't find what we're looking for on our VIP page. And we also use FPDS, which is now also rolled under Beta SAM, to find past searches or past awards that people may have purchased previously, and we're able to use that to help find vendors out there. Again, there's that NAICS word again. That was last updated in 2017, and we also use the PSC manual to do our market research. This is what we buy typically on an annual basis. This is not, if you do the math, it's not going to add up to 100%, but those are our biggest categories of spend. And again, 50% is our goal for small business. So that's $230 million, which is quite a bit. And obviously a lot of these are medical in nature, because we support the veterans on the healthcare side. And we do a lot of construction, as I mentioned, of new medical facilities or wings on existing medical centers. How do we purchase? We have strategic sourcing vehicles known as Medical Surgical Prime Vendor. Those are mandatory sources for us. They've already been pre-competed, and we get discounted prices because we buy things in bulk, like gloves or syringes or things that we use every day. We also have strategic contracts through the NAC, SAC, and TAC. These are federal supply schedules, blanket purchase agreements, basic ordering agreements, things of that nature. Again, these are things that we buy on a routine basis. We also use GWACs, government-wide acquisition contracts. GSA is a big one, and then NASA SOUP. We buy a lot of our IT equipment through NASA SOUP because those have already been blessed to integrate with our existing federal systems. We use MATOCs. These are multiple award task order contracts for construction and architecture and engineering. Those are 100% set aside for SDV OSBs. That market is huge for SDV OSBs, so we typically don't go outside of that. We do have some opportunities that pop up that may be over the threshold for our MATOCs, and that's a $10 million ceiling. So we have an opportunity right now coming up in Omaha for air handling unit tower, which is in the $10 to $20 million range. So that will be coming out on Beta SAM contract opportunities here in the next month or so. And then if we can't find anything on any of those pre-existing vehicles, we'll go open market. This is just a little bit about who we are. Like I said, we provide contracting support for Vision 23, which supports 440,000 veterans in Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and portions of Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. We also have nine healthcare systems and 69 CBOCs, or community-based outpatient clinics, in the more rural areas that we, for those that can't make it to the major medical centers, or for less critical care. I'm a visual guy, so this is helpful. Again, our VISN headquarters is here in Eagan. This is our NCO headquarters, unofficially in St. Paul, but wherever you see the red stars, that's where we have major medical centers, and typically we have a buying office nearby. I'm not going to go through each of these, it just kind of breaks down further what each office does. Steps to doing business with the VA. So obtain a DUNS number. That's a unique 9-digit number. Everybody has to have one. That is transitioning to Ernst & Young. It's going to be called an EIN. Daniel can probably talk more to that, but I think that's been kicked to the right a little bit. It was supposed to happen here in the last fall, but I think that's been pushed off. Again, you have to register at sam.gov. Eventually that's going to be going to Beta SAM, but that, again, I think has been kicked to the right. And then SDV OSBs and VOSBs, they have to go through that extra step with the CVE in order to be verified and listed in our VIP database. Working with your local PTAC, Daniel, to receive bid matches that are tailored to your small business capabilities. That will help you find those opportunities much quicker than just going out and searching contract opportunities on Beta SAM by yourself every day, because that can be very time intensive. Developing a website and a capability statement for the goods and services that you provide with point of contact information, and then visiting the VA forecast of contracting opportunities and current contract opportunities, also formerly known as FBO, but now Beta SAM. And that's where all of our opportunities are posted if they are going to be competed open market. This is just a list of resources. Again, OSDBU, they got a lot of good information out there. PTAC, you obviously found this through the Omaha PTAC or the Nebraska PTAC, so good on you for that. System for award management, again, make sure that your profiles are updated and current. Otherwise, we've had it happen where we can't award a contract to somebody because their profile expired on SAM, or we weren't able to find somebody because they didn't update their profile to include their capabilities, or they didn't share it with the Small Business Administration's dynamic small business search. So just those are little keys to help you do business and to help us find you. The SBA local assistance, they have a lot of, like I said, a lot of outreach training tools that will help you be more savvy as a business owner. The VA forecast of contracting opportunities, as I mentioned earlier, that's where we post all of our upcoming opportunities, and I think you can go out several years. It's always changing, but for planning purposes, that's sometimes easier than going out on Beta SAM and finding what's needed now, if you want to, especially for construction and things that are more long lead. Current opportunities there at Beta SAM. If I go back one to this forecast, I did provide Daniel with an easy tutorial on how to use that website because it's not super user friendly. They're updating it to fall under the VIP website, but I don't have a timeline when that's going to happen. Hopefully soon. eBuy, we do post a lot of opportunities out on GSA eBuy for supply type items. We do have a VA federal supply schedule service. If you're interested on getting on our VA FSS, you can do so at that website, or at least get more information. We do have other FSS contacts, like I said, for the NAC or the SAC or the TAC. I put each of those down there if you want more information on that. And then our vendor information page is, again, where all of our CVE certified veteran-owned small businesses are listed for when we do our market research. I know I ran a little long, but hopefully that gave you some of the information that you were hoping for. At this point, I can turn the presentation back over to Daniel. There's my contact information. Email's the best way to get a hold of me. I just have more resources at my fingertips that I can send you through email versus over the phone. So Daniel, that's all I have. So I can take whatever